All right, hey everyone, how's everyone doing? It's been a couple months since we did our last one with Grant Stewart, but we're here for the final masterclass, Emmett's Place Education Masterclass of the year, and we're so lucky to have a real incredible guest today and friend of Emmett's. And here's a very quick introduction. We're very lucky to have jazz guitarist Dan Wilson today on December 20th. Dan Wilson's played with a number of jazz legends, including Joey DeFrancesco, Christian McBride, Eric Marienthal, Russell Malone, Renee Marie, Jeff Hamilton, David Sanborn, Dave Stryker. You may remember him if you're familiar with Emmett stuff from Live from Emmett's Place number 54, which was almost 50% of the live streams ago, and that was with Cyril Aimé. Additionally, Dan Wilson has recently released a record on Mack Avenue last year, Vessels of Wood and Earth. We encourage you to check it out. This is very graciously sponsored by DJ DeProspero. So we thank you so much for sponsoring this educational series. So everyone, once again, if you're joining us on Zoom, we got to go in a little bit differently this time. So please make sure to mute and turn off your audio and video so that we can kind of keep this smooth. But that's all I got. We're going to open up the floor for Dan. Please give a warm virtual welcome to Dan Wilson. He's going to start off with a little bit of a talk on what he's been working on and whatever concepts he's got going on. In the meantime, while that's going on, let that inspire questions about what he's talking about or just other things that you want to ask Dan, and drop them into the meeting chat, and I'll do it how we usually do it and feed them to Dan. Later on, we might have a few of you on to speak with Dan face to face. But for now, the floor is yours, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Bryan, and thanks, Emmet, for having me. Just a quick sound check. Can you hear the guitar okay? Okay.
Sounds great. How you doing, Dan? Great to see you, man.
Man, doing all right, man. How's it going, man? I see you out there killing it still.
Everything's good, man. It's good. It's good to have you on here. This is something that's been real important to the community, and having known you for many years, been on tour, on the road, in the house, wherever we do it. I'm a huge fan and feel you just have so much to contribute, not only musically but personally. Someone who has so many interests outside of the music that fuels your artistry, and yeah, I'm just happy to know you. Happy you're here. This is for the community and stuff. We do a Q&A style, but we can definitely open up to a conversation. We'd love to know your thoughts about music, how you approach everything, and what you've been thinking about recently, and what advice you have for people out there who are trying to do it.
Yeah, man. Shoot. Well, as far as well, yeah. First of all, I appreciate you having me on here, and man, it's crazy. I was looking at a picture on my phone, just came up of when we were in Japan, and like you had like, I don't know, like 70% of the hair that you got now. The trip, man. But yeah, lately I've been working on. I'm always working on learning songs, and one of the most challenging for me has been I'm trying to learn Kenny Kirkland's songbook. So, and it's like killing me. So, some of the tunes are so difficult, but they're starting to open up for me. And one that I've recently been working on has been Steeping in Faith. I don't know if you heard that. That's on his self-titled record. It's so like when I looked at that on paper, so I transcribed it, and I was like, man, there's no way I'm gonna be able to blow over this. But as I kind of looked at it, and I was sharing my screen earlier. Let me see if I can do that now. So this is what I have. Can you guys see that? Okay. So, if I was looking at these just first couple of bars in the intro, he's playing I was just looking at the top note. And then I listen to kind of how he starts playing over it, you know. And it's just all blues. You know, if you look at the way these bass notes, where those bass notes go, it's very kind of it seems kind of random, but when you listen to how he connects it, he just uses the blues like he just plays. Now, that's my first approach to playing over that A section. When you get to the bridge, he has some really interesting things happening. So the way I try to approach that first, I try playing the blues over it, you know, and you can pretty much do like some C blues over that. But if you want to start getting a little more involved with the changes, you can start looking at different key centers. Like the first 4 bars, I view that as being like right here. That's pretty much all in C for me, you know. And then right here is just a quick 5-1 to B flat minor, right? You know, and I'll put instead of just your regular B7, I'll just put a 13 add 9, right? And then when I get here, D7, that whole progression, I'm kind of viewing that as if I'm in B flat. So you got 3, 4, 5. You got the flat 7, and then right to G minor. So what I'm playing. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, right, and so when I get to the second ending, I have I view it the same way, except when I get here, I was just like, this kind of happened so quickly. I was like, how is he doing that? But so for that B major 7 flat 5, I'm just viewing that the B major 7 flat 5 going to C7 sus. I'm viewing that just as sort of a 5-1, because if you put a G in that bass, you have B major 7 flat 5, and you put a G in that bass, it becomes G altered. So I'm just playing. Now, when we get to the bridge, this 4 bars right here is kind of a big, it's kind of masking a 2-5-1 to D minor. So he just starts, a half step below the E. So he goes to D minor 13. So what I'm playing over that. I'm sorry. Come on, Dan. There we go. Now, when we get here, I'm always thinking in key centers. So from here to here, I try to I try to think in A flat. So you have 4, 5, 1, but it's like a major 7, sharp 9, sharp 11. So then we're going to E, and then we're almost back home. So we have to start thinking in terms of C again. So we got the flat 2 resolving to the 1. So that whole progression, 4, 5 chord is sus, major 7, sharp 9, sharp 11, and then that A13 flat 9 will resolve into E major 13. It's kind of like E diminished. It's that same sound because part of the same scale, right? Then we're back to the A section. And instead of going to that G flat, he goes to E major 7 flat 5.
Wow.
So that's what I've been working on.
Wow, that's really neat, Dan. I love hearing where you kind of come at dissecting a piece like that for a lot of people would be really difficult, if I was just handed that lead sheet or something like that. And of course, we've got all levels on here.
Oh, okay.
And we're wondering, how would you break down that concept of kind of looking through key centers on different types of tunes as well? Maybe not stuff that isn't Kenny Kirkland, maybe just a standard or something like that. Do you look at the chords and maybe you don't think chord by chord, blow over that chord, but you think of kind of key centers or substitutions like you were just showing us? Could you talk a little bit about that for people who maybe are not learning Kenny Kirkland, or maybe they're learning just the standard or something like that?
Of course, yeah. I no matter what the tune is, I look at it like that. And I try, and like the older I've gotten, and the more music I've tried to learn, I try to learn to conceptualize these tunes in groups of chords, because like you're not thinking like if you hear something like you're not thinking chord. You're thinking, okay, how does this function? 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 is more of for me is more of a useful way to look at that, because then I can play, if I'm thinking of the function of each chord, it's just like, some of the best sight readers, they're not thinking like, okay, there's an A, there's a D, there's a C. They're thinking like, oh, that looks like melodic minor going down.
Yeah.
So that's the way I try to conceptualize the stuff, because like I think it's important to learn the like the Great American Songbook, and the way those tunes kind of flow harmonically, because there are a ton of lessons in each tune. Like, for example, I didn't really know about inverted diminished until I learned the tune "Spring Is Here." I didn't really learn about tunes that are, I know you could go up a minor third and come back down until I learned the tune "Blue Moon." So each tune has.
Could you maybe pick one of those and break down for people who still don't know what that means exactly, going up a minor third, and where in Blue Moon did that become clear to you that that's something you could do?
Yeah, so excuse my singing. So second A, first time I heard it, I was like, you can do that? Hold on a second, you know, because all the tunes I learned were like church tunes, you know, we just, you know, we stayed there. But I was just, that opened up a whole new world for me. And then I heard Bill Evans and Toot Steelman play. And you know, and they did the same thing. So I started seeing patterns there.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, this is how certain standards flow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about, standards like that, Days of Wine and Roses, and then we come back to where you started with that Kenny Kirkland piece.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's too much for me included to go through that entire thing and try and break down all the the chord changes and the substitutions. But if we were to look at those first 4 bars again, and you said you just think C blues,
Yeah.
Maybe you could expand a little bit more on, if somebody got that chart and they wanted to learn that tune, how would they get from, oh my God, I got to blow over these crazy changes, to, no, I just got to play the C blues? How would somebody get that process going?
Sure. Well, okay, so let's look at these first 4 bars and just look at the top note. Let's look at the top note, right?
Yeah.
That's like, that right there is super simple, right? So just start with a variation on that. Oh, sorry. If you listen to him play the first couple choruses, he's playing like nothing but blues.
Yeah.
And it works because, so over C7 sus, you obviously got the root in the melody. Over the G flat 13, 13th is in the melody.
Yeah.
Sharp 5's in the melody here. Thirds in the melody here. The 11th is in the melody here, and the sharp 11 is in the melody over the G flat right here. So that's what I mean by, like, there are a ton of clues in just learning the melody to a tune. The if it's a good melody, it's written for a reason.
Yeah.
Because it ties in intimately with the harmony.
Gotcha. Man, that's awesome. I don't want this to go down this hole too far, but we talked about standards, and now we're talking about more modern stuff with Kenny Kirkland. And then if we talk about, you guys were talking about John Coltrane compositions right before we started. And I know a lot of people who tune into these types of things are interested in playing these advanced compositions, but not necessarily recognizing the importance of breaking them down into key centers. And they just try and blow over every single one of the changes. So maybe you could talk just to get a third piece in there, maybe about giant steps and how you approach that, where some people might see each chord. If you ever thought on the same kind of approach.
Well, yeah, with giant steps, I just really the best concept for giant steps, I think, comes from that Barry Harris video where he's like, I don't really like the tune, but and then he just plays the most beautiful stuff over it. But one of the greatest lessons, I think, from that video is how he just starts on a single tone, and he was just like, for example, rhythm in B flat. Like, you can tell I've kind of memorized the video, but like, and he's just like, you should be able to run from, and go all the way down, because if you look at the way rhythm change is built, voice leading is built kind of into the progression itself. If you just go down, right? So giant step should be no different. You know, if you just I just play it at like ballad tempo, you know. So I'm sorry. Right. So that's the way I approach it. I take it super slow and just kind of speed it up incrementally over time.
Dan, beautiful, man. This makes me think about all the different elements of music. Um, People are like, well, what's important when you're playing an instrument, and it's like, well, sound. You have amazing sound, um, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that want to know something about your sound, um, and also your feel, time, and how you kind of work on those things or how you approach that. We've heard a lot of things on this, like you got to feel the dance, you got to do different things to get to those things. But time and feel, I'm wondering, because you're playing through these tunes, like, and here's the harmony and here's the harmony, but like the most amazing part of what you're doing to me when you play it are those two things.
So, and I think to me that's the most. Those are the most important aspects of music. Like time and feel is before anything. I'll take wrong notes any day, but but somebody with a bad feel, it can be like excruciating to listen to. But I really, for me, it was kind of formed before I started playing an instrument,
What do you
because
need?
I grew up playing in church. Oh, somebody's not muted.
I'm sorry, 1 second.
That's not
Hey, hey y'all, if you're in here, just remember to turn off your microphone so that we don't disrupt the session. I think it's off now. I'm trying to find you too. Sorry, Dan. You go on.
That's all right. Yeah, so it started before I played an instrument, because when I came up in church, we used to have devotional service, and there would be congregational songs, and everybody had to participate. There was an opening prayer, and then there was
a bunch of flowers.
a thing where somebody's yelling at their kids. I think I can relate. But so everybody would clap and sing, and in time. And if you were clapping out of time, then the whole congregation would look at you. So that's where I learned to stay in time. Your entire body has to be in time. You have to motion side to side. You got to clap on 2 and 4. So by the time I picked up an instrument, that part was already kind of reinforced. So now when I go to improvise, the first thing I think about is time and feel. And I said this in another masterclass, like African American music exists in a continuum. All of the cultural aspects that apply in gospel and that apply in blues, those all transfer to jazz. The accent may differ slightly, and the harmony may be more sophisticated, but the same principles apply. So, but the way I try to work on that is, like, even to this day, I'll if I'm listening to music in my car, I'm tapping on 2 and 4. If we're swinging, I'm tapping wherever the hi-hat is. So that's why I love listening to drummers like Philly Joe, like Art Taylor, like Al Harewood. Those are some of my favorite drummers. Louis Belson, because I'll listen really closely to their hi-hat, and that's the hand clap, and that transfers from gospel music to hand claps right here. So all this accent is going on, but that hand clap is right there.
Mm.
Fast forward to a drummer like Clyde Stubblefield. The hand clap is still there. All the accents are happening, but the hand clap is right there. So that's what I try to play off of.
Could you speak a little bit about the 1 and 3 versus 2 and 4? I know it's a little bit of like a discussion or debate between people on tapping their foot, and you're emphasizing more of a 2 and a 4 kind of situation. Is that where you tap your foot and where you kind of think about feeling time?
I think it's like for gospel, like we'll tap on 1 and 3. Like a lot of times we'll move on 1 and 3, but hand claps will be on 2 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like almost like a drum set, ding, 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 ding. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, always I'm always thinking of the hand clap in those spots if it's swinging. If we're talking about like Afro-Cuban, or something like that, I'm thinking, clave. If we're talking like Brazilian, I'm thinking like, Partido Alto or all the language is coming from the drums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna jump into that was a great discussion of like understanding music and breaking it down in not just harmonics but to the feel. So thank you for that. We got some questions coming in, so I'm gonna go through them and let you know. Just before we do that though, if you're watching, remember you can comment your questions by clicking on that chat icon, that tab on the bottom of the meeting screen, and just make sure it's either going to me or going to everyone. I'll be sure to collect them and pass them along to Dan to answer. We got a question that's kind of a nice transition out of what we've just been talking about. We went through a whole array of tunes from different decades. And then, of course, it always came back to Barry Harris and his teachings. So Paul Baker's asking, how do you translate your bebop language to more modern tunes like Kenny Kirkland? Hey there, how you doing? Like Kenny Kirkland and other modern composers. How do you kind of use that approach?
Yeah, for me, I still use the bebop language in that music. I try to find the ways that I can insert all that language into the more modern music, because like I said before, all this stuff is cumulative. It exists in a continuum. So and really I still view guys like Bird and Dizzy as modern, because I haven't really heard anybody surpass them. There's kind of this almost this aesthetic, like that we've moved on from that, but I really don't think we have. I think we're just building on top of their innovations. For example, there's that version of Lester Leaps In on I think the album Liveology, where Bird is he's blazing through that rhythm changes, and then the last A, he goes up a minor third and plays just for a second, and that's so advanced. And so when I go to approach tunes like we talked about Steepy and Faith, I'm still using that same vocabulary, and as well as, I think the greatest innovation that Charlie Parker gave to us was he kind of changed the way the eighth note was felt. So when we're swinging, we still use that, because you think about guys like in the 30s, like guys like Charlie Christian, there's kind of that loping feel. But then you had people like Sweets Edison and Lester Young. They were kind of smoothing it out a little bit, and I think it kind of all kind of came to a head when you had Charlie Parker come along, because then he's a that's still how we swing today. So no matter how modern the music I'm playing, I'm still thinking about what those guys do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And once again, it's always coming back to, it's not just the language, it's the feel is just as important. And
Dan, on especially on these master classes, we always have questions about people's influences, and obviously you named a lot of influences, but I'm wondering about guitar influences in particular. And I know them, or some of them, because I know you, but maybe 5 guitarists who've had a profound effect on you, and if you can, maybe you can try to play in their style for just a couple of minutes or bars or whatever you have inside your hands right now. But I think it's helpful to see, like, wow, okay, Dan Wilson can imitate all these kinds of people and sound just like them. And you do that. You're one of the best imitators I know. You imitated the entire Barry Harris video. When it comes to Lean on Me, we know every line in the movie. For those of you who don't know, when Dan Wilson and Christian McBride get together, they quote Lean on Me for
the whole time
for weeks on end. No, it's beautiful, but I think it's such a jazz musician thing to imitate like that in all various aspects, and it helps people see how you got to where you are, how you became Dan Wilson, to see just what an imitator you are.
Yeah, man, that's such an important thing, just to go through that imitative phase, and that's something I hear with you too, like all the time you spent with Cedar's music, and all the time you spent with Ahmad Jamal, and Oscar Peterson, with like you hear Bobby Timmons in there, you know what I'm saying? But like, yeah, for me, the first jazz player, because there's a million guitar players in my church, like really, really good guitar players that were all into kind of Grant and Wes and George Benson, but I was imitating them first, and then I was like, somebody showed me Wes Montgomery and Jimmy Smith playing Down by the Riverside on the Dynamic Duo album. I was like, what in the world? And Wes was playing, and he's playing. He's going all over the bar line, and then I heard George Benson play Weekend in LA, and I think he did at the end of the tune. And then he played, what was it? Oh, he played Olio like way upstairs, and he was doing all that. You know, and I was just like, man, how was he able to do that? And you know, I would just like really, I would play along with those records, and I would kind of act like I was in the band. You know, so I would imitate that stuff all day. Herb Ellis was a big one. All that stuff he did with Oscar Peterson, and especially the records that they did with Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. Just the way that he worked together with the piano, which is a tough thing to do without stepping on Oscar Peterson. You know, he would just play these little you know, and it would just add so much. Like when they played, what's it? The snow is snowing, the wind is blowing. I can't weather the storm. What do I care how much it may storm? And just the way that he was working together with Oscar Peterson really kind of blew me away. So that'd be number 3. I was heavy into Barney Kessel. On what was it, the Billie Holiday album, All or Nothing at All. It's some of the greatest guitar playing. And Joe Pass, the way he played behind Ella, you know, they played. That's just like some of that stuff today. I get warm on the inside.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow, man, that's always eye opening, especially for people of different instruments. You know, who knows who's different levels. Like everyone can relate to something like that.
Sure.
Can you give us like an honorable mention, kind of like someone in your church who you saw playing guitar? Because you do talk about that a lot. Israel.
Yeah.
Israel. And that's I know that's your boy from church, who's the influence you wrote a tune for. But that's something that a lot of guitar players that I've encountered. It's something that they don't have in their playing. Because they come to the music from a different place, and it's something that makes you real unique out here in the world as a working jazz musician. You know, what kind of stuff that would sound like growing up, and like what kind of tune you would play, or just something briefly in that style.
Yeah, man. It was weird because it was really similar to the jazz players, but like, you know, the guy that it goes back all the way to like the 40s. You know, and then there were these two guys, Isaac Fontaine and Fred Dreyer, and I don't know where they came from, but like they were like, I think super into Charlie Christian, and then that just spurred a whole nother generation until they got to, let's see, around the 70s. There was a guy from Akron, a guy named Arthur Lee Gale, and he brought like core melody and like all the Wes and George Benson stuff. He was heavy into Boogaloo Joe Jones, and so he would, a lot of times there would be no piano in the church, so he would just like kind of basically drive the service. It'd be bass, guitar, drums, and some tambourines, and he would just play kind of like, you know, whoops. And don't let him start picking, you know, because then he's that's like the first. I used to have that on cassette tapes, and I would just be like in the wee hours of the morning. I'd just be in there, just like with my head to the speakers, like, man, how does he do that? And that went on for years.
It's cool. It's cool to me to hear that and then draw a comparison in my head to what you're talking about, the very first thing in the class, which was just the first line of Steepy and Faith.
Yeah.
And how you playing the blues over there and how related those two things are, but how seemingly far they are in concept.
Sure.
When we really zoom in.
Absolutely.
Man, I want to go back to one of the influences that you mentioned, Herb Ellis. And I think we have a really unique and special opportunity here. We're sitting with obviously you, Dan Wilson, and of course Emmet. And for those of you who don't know, this is the two of you are 2/3 of Christian McBride's Tip City Trio, and you're talking about Herb Ellis and how he and just the kind of constant trying to balance between the guitarist and the pianist. And I'm just curious, you guys have obviously had the opportunity to play with each other with Christian McBride a number of times. How did you guys kind of deal out your concept? Did you have conversations about it? Was it weird? How did you figure out who sits where and what textures did you discover together? If you could just speak about that concept for other guitarists and pianists.
Emmett, I don't know if you remember this, but like one of the runs we had at Dizzy's, you were like, hey man, what do you think about just kind of throwing some surprises at McBride? Because like it seems like we're locked into a concept where one person solos. It's kind of like round robin. One person solos for a while. And what if we start getting into some other stuff? And we tried that, and McBride was like, "Yeah, y'all," and he really dug it, and it caused the music to go in another direction. So, do you remember that?
Yeah, I think after playing together for a long time, you get locked in a box sometimes, and sometimes it takes a conversation, and that's something that I really advocate for. People are too scared oftentimes to say, hey, when you were playing this is what I was thinking, and when I was thinking this, and when I went for that, for example, register or something that's super important. So if Dan's playing a lot of stuff in the middle register, right where I'm at in the piano, I was thinking about, hey Dan, if you're playing in there, I'm gonna think about playing either higher or lower or both. Duke Ellington would play high and low on the piano at the same time, and let's see what happens. Like if we can we play together using those textures? Like, can it fit together sonically? And sometimes it would. Be like, okay, so that's an option in our language. Also, something we talk a lot about is like rhythm. Like, who's playing the more rhythmic thing right now, and then who's playing the more kind of sustained thing right now? Because we're both playing sustained, it's a vibe. But if we're both playing rhythmic, it's a certain vibe. So I mean, those are three options right there. Do we both play rhythmic? Do we alternate, or do we both play kind of sustained things? And those are other textures and things to be conscientious about. And I think the more we talked about it, the deeper our connection became while improvising. Like, okay, Dan, I'm going for this, and then I recognize this choice, and because of that, then I can start to make another choice. And so I think that's something that I'm always thinking about in any band I play with, and I was lucky, and we were lucky enough that we were friends, so we could talk about that kind of stuff, because it's not easy to know how to communicate that kind of stuff, because people are very sensitive.
Yeah, somebody might think like, "Oh, what you mean?
Yeah, you
not
say
good enough."
you say the wrong thing, and all of a sudden, say it the wrong way, and all of a sudden, someone takes the defense, and then all conversations are shut down. And we can talk to each other because we're around the same age and the same generation, but I would never talk to you like I talk to someone who's 70 or 80 who's been out here doing this, and when it comes time for that, you listen. So I think that's the advantage of playing with someone in your generation. You can talk about those things, and you can say, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm thinking. And the more that you play together, you stop thinking, and you start doing those things naturally.
Yeah.
So that's what I remember about that. I don't know if you wanted to expand on that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, because like I used to like when I first started playing with Joey, I was like kind of young and foolish, you know. So I would be like, "Hey man, why don't we try this?" And he was like, "No." You know, I was like, "Oh dang, okay." And but as time went on, you know, he trusted us a lot more. So the concept started to open up, you know. But like for me to just be coming into the game, like, hey man, let's play some different time signatures. Let's play this, and you know, he was like, man, just young fella, why don't you just watch and learn for a minute? And he was right, you know. So but like with Emmet, we're like relatively close in age, so we were able to kind of mix it up a little bit more and really have the open dialogue a lot sooner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for that insight from both of you on that. I know that's something that, as pianists and a lot of guitarists too, watching this, that's something that we all come in contact with at some point, is playing with somebody else in that way. We got a question here from somebody, and this question is common. We always get it for every guest, and I think it's important. Just developing language. How do you go about developing your language? Is it through transcriptions? Is it through just picking out certain phrases and running with them in all 12 keys, playing them over and over again? How do you do that? And I have a follow-up to that, because I recently took a lesson from someone, and he mentioned that especially people of my generation, it's harder and harder for us to just sit down and focus on learning one thing deeply, because now we have all these different concepts coming at us, and it's like, well, I want to learn Kenny Kirkland, and it's like, well, can I even swing yet? And what about Charlie Parker? And then you just kind of can do a little bit of everything not very well, and you're somebody who does all these different things deeply. So how did you develop that language?
I think one thing that can help. So the way my mind works is like I'll oh, excuse me, I'll have like tunnel vision almost to a fault, so if I find something that captures my interest, then I'm like laser focusing on it. So I'm like, what I do is I create a playlist of like, okay, this is the Bird album I'm into. So every time I get in the car, I'm listening to it over and over and over and over. Every time I'm on a plane, I'm listening to it over and over and over. So by the time I go to sit down, it's kind of in my subconscious. And that's one of I think the advantages of living in this generation. You can do that. You just have to. I know there's a lot of information coming at us all the time, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't affected by that. But I think you can use that to your advantage. You just have to kind of prioritize your listening. Like with all the streaming services, like I have lots of thoughts on streaming services and how they don't really pay artists, but they can be a useful practice tool if you use them in the right way. Like I have at all times, I have a working playlist of tunes. Like I have one called Heavy Listening. So and it's all kind of stuff. Like I have what's on here now? I have some Chick Corea, I got James Brown, I got Duke Ellington, Joe Henderson. I got a bunch of Brazilian stuff on here, Jordi Caymmi, Jaco Pastorius, a bunch of stuff. And my concept is I try to put all those together. But when I'm like you said, I don't want to fall into just being able to do a couple things not very well. Like if I want to do it, like if I'm swinging, I want to be swinging. I'm not some of this like halfway swing. I'm trying to be like deep in the pocket, you know. Same way with the funk. Like if I'm playing funk, I don't want no like light. You know what I'm saying? I'm let's be on the one. You know what I mean? So that's the way I approach it. You know, living in this generation, you know, the tools are available. It's just you kind of have to and seek out the masters too. That's one of the cool things I thought that Emmet was doing even early on when like even before I knew you. He's checking out Jimmy Cobb and trying to play with Jimmy Cobb, playing with Ron Carter. You know, the people from these previous generations, the masters from these previous generations, have a wealth of knowledge that we can draw upon and filter it through our imaginations. So, you know, if George Coleman is playing near you, run out to go see him because like he's gonna blaze.
For those of you watching live, I'm playing it with them the next 3 nights starting tonight.
Yeah, if I was in the area, I would be right there because that's going to be ridiculous. You know,
Absolutely.
like me and Joe used to talk about George Coleman all the time because like whenever we come to New York, George Coleman would show up and he'd be like, "Mr. Wilson, is that Mr. Wilson? That you just sound beautiful." And you know, like that would freak me out because we would talk about some of the concepts that George Coleman showed Joey. And Joey would throw some of that stuff in when we'd be playing, and then we'd both like imitate George Coleman's voice on stage. You know, so he's a special musician.
Man, this is a side note, but I'm kind of noticing now myself, like you doing all these impressions, not just musically, but of their voices. And whenever I hang out with Emmet and all them, they're always imitating too. And it's a funny thing, but it's kind of a serious thing. It's like kind of poetic in a way. It's like, oh, it goes that deep in a way, you know,
Absolutely.
really, really paying attention to their whole essence. It's not just what do they do when they sit down at their instrument, but what is their spirit like at all times? And that makes sense that the two of you, you know, hanging with y'all, it's like you just start kind of doing that. I got another question here. I like this question a lot. Somebody just asked for you, both Dan and Emmet, today, you've got so much in your fingers, so much in your hands and your mind. What is the biggest struggle that each of you faces musically today at this time?
You want to go first?
Sure. I mean, there are a lot of struggles. You know, life is about struggle and pain management, right? um, that being said, you know, we've had some tremendous opportunities, both Dan and I have too. I think as things get busier with life, it's about balancing. Um, it's about balancing the musical endeavors with the life endeavors. And I think that's my biggest struggle. I mean, you know, we're doing programming live. We were live streaming every week. We were doing education videos. You know, we're trying to plan tours. I'm on the road playing 230 gigs a year or something like that. And to find time to just sit with the music and let it come naturally has been the hardest part. You know, try to answer all my emails, try to get back to everyone who needs something, try to donate my time for charity when necessary or when presented with, you know, try to contribute, play in Harlem where I live around, and you know, to play as a sideman and to help younger musicians. And, you know, there's so many aspects of the music, you know, that when it comes time to sit down and actually play, sometimes, you know, sometimes all the other stuff can avalanche down upon you. And I think things that help with that are meditation. But I also know, like, you know, I watch Dan's life and he has 2 beautiful children now. And that's a whole other angle of you know, seeing your daughter latch onto you while you're strumming beautiful chords. I mean, that's serious stuff. You know, who has time for Steepy and Faith when you have a family to hang out with and to deal with? So, I think as things move on with the years and with life, it's how we restructure and balance those hours that we have to play music and to deal with music, and how we interact with that, I think.
No. Yeah, I think my biggest thing is definitely work-life balance, because I, with the way my personality is, like if I'm into something, I'm like into it, like so much so that sometimes I'll kind of shirk my responsibilities, and that's why having kids was kind of like a one of the ways that it was a blessing for me, because I've never been kind of more together. It's just like as far as like time management, because I can't, like when I was like 16, from age 16 to like 19, 16 to like 20, I played like 8 hours a day, so like, I mean, just all day, you know. But I obviously can't do that anymore, and it really has caused me to have to boil things down to the essentials, because like kids don't care like if you can play over Steepy and Faith or Giant Steps or Countdown. They're like, hey, are you here?
That's hilarious.
So that's kind of I think that's kind of caused me to manage my time a lot better. Even like with compositions, my compositions are a lot more practical than they were when I was younger. Because I was just like, man, I can, sure, I want it to be harmonically complex or harmonically interesting, I should say, but it doesn't have to be like math music. It's just it has to feel good. It has to reach people in the guts. Because if my daughter can be like, "What's that song? I like that." She's not thinking like, "I really like how you just stayed on the sharp 11 and you hit the flat 13." She's just like, "I like that. It sounds nice to my ears." So that's one of the biggest things for me now. Like one of the biggest struggles actually turned into like a great lesson, a great triumph.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's interesting that you two both are kind of at that same, well, in different ways, but it's all about that work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming in the final half hour here, everyone. I want to make sure to get at least one or two of you on here to speak with Dan yourself and just ask him a quick question. We changed up the Zoom format, but if you can click on that, find that reactions tab at the bottom of the meeting screen, and click on that and click raise hand. If there is anyone who's interested in coming on, you just click raise hand, and I'll come to you. And does that work like that? Yeah, there we go. We'll start with Yuval for sure, because we always get Yuval in here and he always asks an interesting question. So Yuval, I think the way we've got it, I don't even need to promote you. You should just be able to turn on your video and mic. You can do that now.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I wrote a question out earlier. My music teacher, a dear friend and mentor, is the student of Art Johnson, who was the student of Barney Kessel. And that's where I got my love for jazz guitar. What do you think musicians and vocalists that don't play guitar can learn from guitarists?
I think I would say, okay, so have you ever seen the documentary on Andre Segovia called "The Song of the Guitar"?
No, I have not, sadly.
Oh man, that's I think people who don't play guitar, I think is great to understand just how the guitar works, because I don't think a lot of people really understand what the many things that the guitar is capable of, because he goes through just all the different timbres, he imitates every section of the orchestra, brass, woodwinds, just to where he plays up on the bridge. It's really, really fascinating. He describes it as it's like looking at something with binoculars, but with the reverse side of the binoculars. So like piano, you have all this this harmony just kind of laid out in front of you, and you have a gigantic range. With the guitar, it's a lot more condensed. So he goes on to say, he's like, the song of the piano is a discourse. The song of the cello is an elegy. The song of the guitar is a song. So it's like really, it's like having a small orchestra in your hands, with emphasis on small. So if you can, I think people who are not used to that, if they can dial into that, there's some really beautiful stuff in there.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Yuval. Thanks for your question as always. In the meantime, as we're nearing the end here, we got another person, Shane. I'm going to let you in just a second, and we thank you for your question earlier too. If you have any speed round or lightning round questions, as many of you know who've joined us before, we always close out with some rapid fire lightning questions that always stump our guests. So drop those. I know we've already gotten some from Facebook and YouTube. I'm checking those too. So if you're watching from there, drop your lightning round questions, something that can be answered in 1 to 3 words. And we'll close out with those. But before we do that, Shane, feel free to turn on your mic and your camera and speak with Dan right now.
Hey, Dan. Hello.
Hey, man.
I'm sure you don't remember this, but I picked you up from Manchester, New Hampshire airport once when you were doing Jim Stinnett's bass workout.
Oh man, 2005.
That's right. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. So I'm a bass player. Since you were the house guitarist at that little bass convention thing.
Yeah.
But I also play guitar. That's sort of my instrument that I usually write music on. But my question was a very guitar specific question. You get such a great tone out of your guitar. And I mean, I know a lot of that is in the fingers or basically all in the fingers, but I'm also curious about gear all the time. And I'm wondering like what gauge strings you're using, because they sound quite thick, but then you were bending a little bit and it seems pretty easy for you to bend them. So I wasn't sure. And also so many jazz guitarists use hollow body guitars to get like the sound, and I don't know if that's solid body or if it just doesn't have any F holes or what, but I was just curious about that.
No, it's solid. This is Pat Martino's guitar, the Benedetto, and I'm using 11s, flat wounds, Diodarios, because I want to be able to bend, because I like blues, but a lot of the tone is coming from the right hand, so that rest stroke is so important. When I look at somebody with good articulation, on any instrument really, just making use of that bounce. If I look at any great drummer and you can see kind of the stick just fly off of the drum, that's the effect I'm trying to get off of the instrument. So the rest stroke is really important on those down strokes.
Great. And are you using, when you say rest stroke, are you using like almost like a gypsy jazz approach? Do you use like a ton of rest strokes even on eighth notes, or are you alternating more than like Django Reinhardt would?
Well, the rule I try to live by, if there's one note per string, especially ascending, then they're all downstrokes, all rest strokes. And now, if I'm alternating, if it's more than one note per string, then I'm alternating. So that's the rule I try to live by. And I find that gives me more control, and each downstroke is rested, because the the upstrokes are powered by the energy from the downstrokes. So even when I'm going fast, I'm kind of bouncing off of that downstroke.
Great. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, thanks, Shane, for getting that guitarist question in here too. I know there's a bunch of guitarists who would be interested in hearing that, whether they're watching live or later. I'm going to get to Paul next, but before I come to you, Paul, before you turn everything on, there was a question here that I wanted to throw in just to mix things up. Of course, we recently lost Joey DeFrancesco, and you had the great opportunity of having a relationship with him and playing with him. And somebody here is asking if you have a favorite memory, especially as we talk about the importance of learning from these people and these masters of music. Is there anything that stuck out about your time with Joey?
Man, so much. And he's, man, man, it's kind of, sometimes it can be hard for me to talk about because, you just, like, it's been, half a decade just being around him all the time. And, some of the stories he would tell about Miles and playing with John McLaughlin. But I think maybe the story that sticks out for me is when we were driving from Cincinnati to Akron, and Joey and the organ tech were in the front of the van, and Joey's talking about his grandfather. His grandfather was a sax player, and he's talking about how he got fired from his job from his orchestra job for slamming doors. And the way, if Joey would find something funny, he would repeat it every 5 minutes. And so me, Troy, and Jason were in the back of the van, and we were like, man, if he does this joke one more time, I'm gonna intentionally crash this car. And they kept doing it, and they did it so much that they forgot to fill up their gas tank, and we got stranded on the road, and we were
no.
And it just happened to be along the side of the road. Some people stopped, and they were fans of Joey's, and we were like, oh, you're Joey DeFrancesco, and they went to don't mess with that. They went to the gas station for us and filled up our gas tank. And so Joey goes, you see, angels are watching over me, man. Stick with me, man. We were like, shut up, man. Get out of here.
You can't say that word.
Yeah, that's true. I shouldn't have said that word. That's all right. All right, go on. That's it, but yeah, that's what sticks out. That's what sticks out to me. One of the things.
Wow, man, thanks for sharing that story.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Bro.
Yeah, we're gonna keep going. Get one more person on here before I move on to the lightning round. Paul, you asked a great question earlier, and if you're here, feel free to turn off your microphone and your video and join us and speak with Dan.
Yeah, hey guys.
Hey, man.
Shout out to your daughter for keeping you aligned with the language, though. By the way, that's always good. It's always good to. Anyway, especially with guitar, I find like people can go so caught up on just like working on their blowing, like working on ripping over changes, stuff like that. Like, and myself included, just neglect the comping aspect of it, which for guitar players like a huge part of the instrument and the tradition and stuff. So what have you found to be like some of the most important things you've worked on in your accompaniment to like really make it feel good, really complement the soloist in whatever situation you may be in?
Sure. Well, that was a really important thing working with Joey, because I kind of got my ego bruised when I first started playing with him, because I was like, oh yeah, I can comp, I can play whatever. And then he was just like, I'm gonna be real with you, man. Just he was just like, man, your comp is not it's not there yet. Like, don't listen to all your favorite guitar players who comp behind organ players. Don't listen to how George comps. Don't listen to how Wes comps. Like that doesn't work with me. I was like, huh? You know, like I was like, I thought George Benson was just like the highest of the high. You know, George is like, yeah, man, this is how I play. You know, but Joey was like, don't do that. Go listen to Herbie. Go listen to McCoy, and go listen to Wynton Kelly, and listen to the space that they gave those musicians, because you know, somebody like Joey, a ton of stuff is happening all the time, you know. So I had to go to Paul Bollenbach, and I was like, how do you play behind him, man? Because you know, I just, it's been 2 years, and I still can't figure out his tendencies, because they're always changing. And he was just like, he told me one word. He said, wait. I was like, I got it. Okay, so I would wait for him to suggest where he was going. And a lot of times I would just lay out, because, like, you know, you listen to people like McCoy, and you start to realize how much time they spent not playing behind Train, or somebody like Benny Green, how much time he spent not playing behind Freddie, because they could take it to a point that was just to where you just couldn't contribute. Kenny Kirkland would do the same thing behind Kenny Garrett. You know, he would just stop playing, and it would be Tane, Kenny, and Nat Reeves. So, and then when he would come back in, he would just play something really, really subtle. You'd be like, "Oh man, he's there," you know. So that was a big lesson for me. Is just wait for the soloists, especially a soloist like that. You know, wait for them to suggest where they're going, and then I started to understand, like, oh, okay, he's doing this again. I started to hear his tendencies, but I was so into my own thing that I needed to have my ego bruised to understand what was happening.
Thank you. Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Another great story too. We still got time. We're gonna bring in one more person here. I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong, Corinius. If you're here, feel free to turn on your camera and your mic and speak with Dan. Thanks for being here.
Okay. Hello. So my dad recently bought me a guitar, and I don't know how to play it. So I was wondering if you had any tips.
Whew, man, it's been like 20 years. I'm still trying to figure out how to play it. I would say, well, first, what kind of music are you into?
I play anything right now.
But like, what's a song that you can't stop listening to?
I like a lot of Coldplay.
Okay. So I would say try to pick the melody out of one of the Coldplay tunes. That's where I would start. That's how I started. I listened to the music that I was into, and I just tried to just kind of figure it out. So I would say spend a couple months trying to do that. Just trying to play one tune. Just trying to reproduce the sound on the instrument.
Okay.
And then I would branch out to find a teacher. But try to get whatever's in your head out on the instrument. Just try it out, because you never want to lose that spirit of discovery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that starts early.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that.
Cool.
I'll add one thing to that. And in yoga, they say your daily practice is your best practice. And, you know, it takes a lot of discipline to do something every day. But a lot of people understand the gym analogy. If you go to the gym one time a week for 5 hours and you go as hard as you can, it's not going to be as beneficial as if you went every day for 20 minutes, which ends up being less time, way less time than 5 hours. But it's the same when learning anything. It's the same when starting out on an instrument. You know, just to do 20 minutes to just work on something every day is how you really get better, really tackle it.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
And then if you want to be Dan Wilson, you practice 8 hours a day for 4 years and take it to another level.
but that's the way I started out, was just, just kind of discovering, and then you start to get that tunnel vision, like just every day, a little bit every day. Like you said, just consistency is the key.
Awesome. Thanks for your question, Corinius. We got a little time. So Mo, if you've got a quick question for Dan here, I'm going to bring you on, and then we're going to go into our lightning round to close it out. Mo, if you're still here, I'm sorry. I kicked you out earlier, so you're back on a different device. Hopefully they'll let you come on. Mo's phone.
Oh.
Okay, Mo may not be here. So we're going to go into our lightning round and close this out here. It's called the lightning round, but it really depends on the guest. And we like to leave it open in that way. Some questions can be more difficult than others, you'll find. And let's see. I've collected them across Facebook, YouTube, and Zoom, and it's quite a collection. Some are silly. Let's see. Here's one from a guitarist. Do you think it is important to practice in the open position?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would say absolutely.
Cool.
Anything that would give you that sound. Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, all of these should be answered in 1 to 3 words, so absolutely would count. Who have you transcribed the most, if there's anyone who sticks out in your mind?
Tough one. Maybe Wes. I would say Wes. Yeah.
Okay. What's the best food to eat before a gig?
I'll say barbecue. Remember the Jazz Standard? That's one thing I always loved about the Jazz Standard. Like, I would just like go in. I get like brisket and all that stuff, and I feel like I would play better.
Man, so how about the best food to eat after a gig, or is it the same?
Yes, that would be the same. Barbecue.
Most intimidating gig you've ever played?
A duo with Rufus Reed, and I tanked.
Mm-hmm.
I was a lot younger, but I tanked bad.
Favorite Coltrane tune?
Oh, favorite Coltrane tune. Liberia. You know that one? Based on Night in Tunisia. Genius tune.
Here's one out of left field, unless I missed something during this Zoom. I don't know if you're a big Chopin fan or not. Maybe you are. Do you have a favorite Chopin etude?
I'm not really too educated on his music.
Yeah, sure.
That may change in the years to come, but I'm not hip to too much of his stuff.
Yeah. Favorite Benson album?
Woo! Weekend in LA, hands down.
All right. Let's see. Okay. What is your favorite key for playing a major blues?
I don't have one. It's weird. They kind of like, I like all of them.
All right.
Yeah.
If the guitar was a one-string instrument, what string would you want to keep?
The low E.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have had a guitar string break on multiple gigs, throughout your career.
It's been a while, but like I had my high E string break, and I think it was on one of the Joey gigs. My high E string broke, and then I had to play on 5 strings. That was interesting.
Yeah. What's your favorite all-time album?
All-time album?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Probably Ella and Louis again.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to name maybe one, but it might be hard. 3 favorite guitarists kind of outside of the jazz idiom.
Sure. João Bosco, Brazilian guitarist. Yeah. Toninho Horta, another Brazilian guitarist. And I would say Segovia. It's a bad dude, man.
All right, all right. This is the penultimate question here, but this is always the one that stumps people. What is your favorite standard?
Man. That's really tough. I really like Spring Is Here. I mean that's but I mean that's really too tough. I mean, I like all the ones about spring.
Yeah,
You Must Believe in Spring.
spring can really hang you up the most.
Really, yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, it's great tune.
So is that your favorite season?
No, fall's my favorite season.
Okay.
But it's kind of tough. That's a tough question.
Oh man, we just had a few quick questions just come in here real quick, so I'll squeeze them in. Man.
Shoot.
Maybe. Oh, that's a question from Emmet. Top 5 James Brown tracks.
Okay. All right. Escapism. Make It Funky. Papa Don't Take No Mess. Payback. And this is kind of messed up, but It's a New Day. I feel like It's a New Day is kind of like the chauvinist national anthem. Like the subject matter is terrible, but it's funky. So yeah, those would be my top 5.
Do you have a favorite jazz solo? Not necessarily on the guitar, although it can be.
Yes, yeah. Louis Armstrong, Potato Head Blues.
Yeah.
I feel like that show. He was just way ahead of the pack, and I feel like it changed music forever. It's all there. It's incredible.
Any books you're reading right now you want to shout out? Anything you've read recently that was cool, interesting?
Yeah, I just let's see. I read Winners Take All by Anand Giridharadas. It's a really good book. I read The Death of Expertise by Tom Nichols, and now I'm reading a biography of this black lawman in the Old West named Bass Reeves. It's called Black Gun, Silver Star. It's pretty fascinating.
All right. You have a favorite jazz related film?
Jazz related film. Yeah. Let's see. No, 'cause I hated the movie Bird, but I liked Round Midnight. You know, I hated the movie Bird because they didn't ever mention the fact that he practiced for 3 months straight, 12 hours a day. It never got mentioned. But they documented well him shooting up. I just thought that was kind of whack. Yeah, Around Midnight. Even though the acting's terrible, the music was incredible.
And the last question we have here is, if you've got any live dates or anything you want to talk about. I know you recently released that album on Mack Avenue a year ago. If there's anything you want to shout out and let the people know.
Yeah, I just recorded another one in September, and I'm trying to put it out in May. The good folks at Mack Avenue, I'm gonna be pushing them pretty hard to do that. But yeah, it's got quartet on there. It's got some singers on there. I'm pretty excited about that. And next month I'll be playing in Arizona with Lewis Nash. Let's see, that's January 20th. And then I got a bunch of stuff coming up in the spring, but I can't think of it now. But it'll all be on danwilsonguitar.com.
Awesome.
I'll put it up there.
Well, that's all the lightning round questions we got for you. And we're here at time. So before we go, I just wanted to say thank you so much to you, of course, Dan Wilson, but thanks to everyone for tuning in here on Zoom, Facebook, YouTube. Big thank you to DJ DeProspero for helping to sponsor this series and have these incredible guests for us all to learn from. Thank you to Emmet. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube and you're wondering how to get in on the Zoom next time, you just head over to emmetcohen.com, click on the education tab, put in your email. Like I said, all of this is sponsored, so it can be free for all of us to learn and enjoy. And one last time, everyone, thank you so much, Dan Wilson, for being a part of this. We really appreciate your wisdom.
Thank you guys, man. And Emmett, we gotta play, man. Stop playing around, man.
Thanks, Dan. I hope to see you soon. I hope to make some music soon. That's what it's really about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We appreciate you, man. Great job. Thank you.